From the Post-Millennial, breaking SAVE Act paired with spending package fails to pass the House. I don't think anyone's going to surprise to hear several Republicans sided with the Democrats to knock this down, because the whole thing is a game. There's very few members of Congress who actually want to do anything. It's a game. We had, I can't remember which rep it was, but it was Freedom Caucus, and he talked about how the Republicans had the votes to overturn Obamacare. And Republican leadership went to him and said, no, vote against getting rid of Obamacare. We need the wedge issue. They never had any intention of overturning any of these things. They didn't care. They say on Wednesday, the SAVE Act, paired with a stopgap government funding package, was voted down. 202 ayes, or whatever, to 220 nays. This comes as illegal immigration and border security combined with concerns over voter fraud has been raised in the country. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, paired with the stopgap, has been a move that House Speaker Mike Johnson as well as Trump have supported in recent weeks. On Wednesday, the package paired with the SAVE Act did not pass the House. The act would prevent non-citizens from voting by requiring that Americans provide proof of citizenship to register to vote. I'm going to tell you what I think. There is no way that 14 Republicans could get away with breaking from Donald Trump and the Speaker. If Mike Johnson goes to the Republican and says, you're voting this way or you're going to lose your committees. I mean, this is, in my opinion, planned. I would more likely to believe that Mike Johnson comes out publicly and says, we're going to do this. This is what we have to do. Convincing everybody that's the plan. Then he goes to a handful of Republicans, says, just vote with the Democrats so that this doesn't actually go anywhere. We're going to pretend like we care. You guys are in swing districts. You'll pretend to be bipartisan. Siding with the Democrats looks good for your reelection. And then we don't have to actually do it. That's what I think happened.
The Republicans who said no, though, I think are some of the most MAGA ones who did. It wasn't the swing district ones. It was it was the Boberts. 2 people voted present. That was Massey and Green. But you're
right. It actually is the good ones who voted against it. My bad.
The point is, shame on Speaker Mike Johnson for someone who wants to stand up there and say that the reason that we need to pass the SAVE Act right now, which, by the way, even if you were to pass it, it would come into effect way too late. Mail-in ballots have already started going out. If he cared so much about election integrity, it should have been his first move when he was Speaker. Second of all, if policy writers work, right, attaching bills onto other bills, in this case a CR, then they should have done it with H.R. 1. Right, low cost energy act, HR 2, actually securing the border. Why didn't they do that on any of the 5 CRs that they've pushed through? And most importantly, Joe Biden has come out and said, hands down, I will veto the SAVE Act. And the Senate said that they would strip it from the CR anyways. So all of the people who voted saying no were on the right side of history, I would argue, because the SAVE Act was going to get stripped from it anyways.
So it wasn't going anywhere in the first place.
It wasn't going anywhere. And the real...
That makes more sense, honestly.
The disgusting part from Speaker Mike Johnson is that they have cheapened the issue of election integrity and cheapened the SAVE Act, which, by the way, we passed in July. It's been sitting in the Senate. They could have held a vote on it. Could have been signed into law by Joe Biden if they actually cared about non-citizens voting, right, in the same breath while they're lecturing us on foreign election interference. But they're dangling it like a shiny toy, a shiny object to try to pressure those 14 members in the Republican Party from a messaging perspective to be able to say, oh, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? You don't care about election integrity. You're not voting for the SAVE Act. And frankly, the Trump statement that he put out, I would argue it's the brilliance of Donald Trump, but it can sort of be read both ways, because he says, I don't want anything happening. We need to pass the SAVE Act. It's the SAVE Act. He didn't express support for the CR. Right? And the SAVE Act can be passed independently. It is the false promise and pretense that Speaker Johnson said, that is that you have to attach it to the CR. You don't. Let alone wanting to fund the same damn government that just almost got President Trump killed again, whether it's the Secret Service or the same DHS that's coming after, or rather busing migrants in, coming after you guys, right? So it's absolutely absurd, and this is more of the BS same that, of course, the war room is always covering, and our audience is always burning down the phone lines, metaphorically, but absolute BS from Mike Johnson.
That's how jaded I am that we often see these, like, Republicans break and pretend like they're not actually going to get behind what the plan is, because it's all like the Obamacare thing that I mentioned. We had a member of the Freedom Caucus in, but this makes a lot more sense. That's how it's unsurprising if Speaker Johnson wanted to do this. The people who are more likely to break from him are going to be the ones who are more MAGA, and they're going to say, yeah, heck no. I suppose, what is the issue then? They don't want, as you mentioned, they were going to strip it anyway.
Biden said he'd veto, and the Senate was going to strip it.
But I suppose that's the point anyway. Is the bigger issue that these guys don't want to vote on it? Like Matt Gaetz, he doesn't want to vote on continuing resolutions.
Yeah, that's the point.
continuing, I think, 2.45 trillion in annual spending, so much so that we'd be paying $3 trillion just to service the debts that are already pre-existing. I think it was a burn rate of $77,000 a second at the rate that they want to put out. Like I said, with no substantive reform for going after any of these agencies, the same agencies that, just 2 days ago, you have Matthew Graves putting out a letter saying that Stephen K. Bannon can't get released from prison early because nothing happened and he just deserves to rot in a federal prison. Yeah, let's make sure we fund his salary. That's what Mike Johnson wants to do. And by the way, it's all performative BS because Mike Johnson is the same dude who waited, 48 hours until Stephen K. Bannon had to surrender to federal prison. So we did something. Mm-hmm. If these people actually cared, they would have nullified the January 6th subpoenas on day one of Congress. Did they? No. What was the first thing Mike Johnson did? Push for more aid to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. So it shows you where the priorities are.
I see no difference between him and a Pelosi. They're all just part of the machine, and they don't care about the people.
They are, to quote someone, listless vessels, right? They are people who are pumped full of cash, whether it's the lobbyists, the donors, whatever foreign country wants them to act however they want. And that's what these CRs are. That's what they purposely do. They don't pass the single subject spending bills. Right? Then you're pushed up against the wall. Then you play the government shutdown politics. And our Republicans are so weak. They're so scared that MSNBC is going to say, oh, well, you're making this poor grandma in West Virginia not be able to eat dinner. Right? They got all the fear porn. And Republicans have no backbone.
Shameful.
It is.
I wish they'd get over
It's disgusting that they would do
yeah.
this to election integrity.
Like fear of bad optics.
They were to,
I think the bigger issue is that Congress is just dysfunctional. It's not a thing anymore.
if the person, like if Mike Johnson was like, all right, I'm not playing ball anymore. I am now a rusty cog in this machine. I'm stuck. They're just going to either go after his family or his bank account or him personally. I would imagine, like, what do they do? These people that are essentially being blackmailed.
Well, look at Trump. They'll get you with 100 years of prison sentences, or they'll throw you in prison like Stephen K. Bannon if you dare to stand up, or they'll try to assassinate you twice.
This is like me losing faith in the government in general. And
Join the club.
You're just now losing it.
It's like
Welcome to the
incrementally,
club.
point by point, I'm like, well, I guess I can check this piece off now. I mean, it's just I'm reminded of how these people in politics, especially in the House of Representatives, are kind of stuck in a process that if they try and stop, they get friction starts to build around them within the process that needs to keep.
It's intentional. They're the henchmen in the front of the castle.
If it stops, the country goes bankrupt because people start to lose their jobs, and then we get invaded and conquered. I mean, that's the fear, I guess. So you just pump funny money into the system until we conquer the world. I don't know what's the plan.
I think it's very much, for many people, it's like this. You get the job, you run for office, you say, I want to do these things. You get in, and they say, okay, we really like your idea for healthcare reform. If we do that, however, if you knock this peg out right here, it's going to collapse over there. What ends up happening is people go in and they tell you the machine is too big to be moved. You have to make all of the major moves down this very narrow path. And you can only change itty-bitty things every so often, which never actually have a big impact.
You can only pass bills about making sure we can't ban gas stoves.
No, renaming post offices.
Yeah.
Because it takes someone brave to go in and say, I am making this change. You see, Ron Paul, this is why I love the guy. He talked about Afghanistan and Iraq. He said, they tell us that if we withdraw our troops, it'll be a catastrophe. Because we went in, we destabilized government, and now we can't leave with an exit strategy. And he said, no, when you prescribe the wrong medication, you stop it. And that's the reality. So right now, what we have is everybody gets in office, and they're told, if you don't adhere to this rigid structure, everything will collapse. It takes someone who's going to be brave to say, you know what? Maybe I'll be a one-term president. I'm going to make some changes that are going to result in some harsh realities for many Americans, but will be a better long-term solution. And they do it. I think Donald Trump is more likely to do that because he's headstrong than Kamala Harris, who's a cog in the machine.
We need like ingenuity in Congress. And I don't know what the difference between ingenuity and genius. We just need someone that's able to transform our fuel economy. We need hydrogen, gasoline hybrids, but you need to convince people as well. You need to be very charismatic because the oil and gas industry has to understand they're going to end up making more money on this transfer when we start turning their coal and oil into graphene. We're going to be pumping more of it, and then we're going to be having hydrogen, so fuel will be cheaper for people. If you can do that, then it doesn't matter if we print $3 trillion more, because it's really like putting a $30 billion debt in the total GDP, because the value will be greatly enhanced because things are so much cheaper due to the fuel resurgence.
What I love about Ian is that he keeps trying desperately to pitch like these energy solutions to people who have no interest whatsoever in fixing anything.
You know, my role at Mines was
Trump
director
always
of
says,
energy.
drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, drill, baby, drill. But also, we can turn a lot of that stuff that we drill into graphene and hydrogen. And then,
Ian, let me tell you what's going on, right? You come on the show and you say, we've got graphene. It's a revolutionary material. It's a super, it can, batteries charge faster. We can make stronger materials, carbon fibers, all these amazing things. We've got hydrogen energy. Meanwhile, the politicians are sitting there with their pen and paper and they're writing it down. And they're going, oh, that's really, really brilliant, Ian. That's so great. And then they say, thank you so much for telling me all that. I've taken all the notes that I need. And then when they get it to leave, you notice they were drawing pictures of cats the whole time.
I think it's that they don't have the cognitive facilities to understand it. Or that
it's that
then they get bored.
Here's what happens. A guy gets in office and he's like, man, this Ian guy really convinced me on hydrogen and graphene, this new energy, these new energies that are going to, invigorate the American economy and help us break oil dependence. They get in office and then everyone around them says, yeah, we're going to lose 10,000 jobs in the oil industry if you start implementing these plans, and you'll never get elected again.
That's the problem. We don't want to make the oil industry suffer. I don't want to strip anything away from the coal and oil. I want to enhance their ability to create.
I get it.
So we'll, instead of using it for petroleum, we'll be using it for graphene. So we'll be using more oil. We need to drill more. We need to dig more coal out of the ground and upscale it into graphene with flash joule heating. You hit it with electricity at 7,000 degrees at 0.1
Then they'll
milliseconds.
hit you with the NAACP and they'll say that you're hurting minority communities by doing that. And some other stuff.
It's
I mean,
really,
you can balance it out. You don't have to drill more.
I'm not
much
saying it
simpler
does,
than all of this. There's no point in you explaining how you want to help oil and drill more oil, because the politician's going to go like this. Once you say it, they're going to say, thank you, Ian. They're going to look at their aide and say, I have no idea what he's talking about. I have a fundraising call in 1 hour. Take care of it.
That's why we need more ingenuity in Congress in general. We need
Higher
really,
IQ.
yeah, like scientists. We need scientists to run for office.
You don't
right
understand.
Now.
They have to fundraise to win their elections. They have
need
to cut
rich,
checks.
charismatic scientists. How many of them are there? We need them all right now.
Yeah,
Asim
great.
Harriman,
Elon Musk.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who else is there?
I don't know that Neil
Tyson.
deGrasse Tyson is wealthy enough nor smart
away.
enough.
Keep him away. Bill Nye. We need Bill Nye involved.
Keep him away too, Ian. Come
He's not a
on.
scientist.
Look, you need a coalition,
He's
man.
not a scientist.
Bring back
What-
Dr.
he's an engineer.
Fauci.
Those guys are like
He's a
Marxist
mechanical
fools.
engineer.
Yeah, but we need engineers.
Dolph Lundgren reportedly has more degrees, science
We
degrees.
need Dolph
than-
Lundgren. Good. Bring him in.
Speaking
That I
of
agree with, that I
spooky
agree with.
scientists, Francis Collins was on MSNBC this morning, and he said we need to inoculate people against misinformation preemptively.
Oh, boy.
That's an actual
Are there
quote.
boosters for that too then? Great.
Yeah, it's like,
Awesome.
that mean?
bro, the vaccines have gone to your brain. Yeah.
They will try that.
That's the solution to all this bankruptcy fear is better fuel systems.
I also think you're gonna have a hard time convincing the public right now of anything change like that, because I think a lot of people are so anti-change in that degree, because it sounds to a lot of people like Green New Deal-ish, and they're so against it right now because it takes away, they think, so much of what we have or had, which is why a lot of people go to Trump, because he's like, we got to bring that back. So you got to find a way to have them convince them. But then, like Tim's saying, the politicians don't care and don't care to convince anybody, because it's going to hurt the vote.
They're spending most of their time fundraising. That's the reality of it. I mean, Matt Gaetz comes and tells us this stuff, that the politicians will sit there and listen, thank you for your time. And then once you walk out the door, they pick up the phone and say, I need money. They're spending all their time fundraising so they can run for re-election again.
Yeah.
They don't want, look, when Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about how they don't actually show up to vote. Remember when she was like, she sits down and she sees like 4 Democrats over here, 4 Republicans, and some guy who's not the speaker is just like, we got a bill that says this, and then 4 of the Republicans go, and the Democrats go, and they go, it passes, I guess, bang. And that's what Congress is, because all of the members are actually on the phone fundraising, pretending to do work. These are people, in my opinion, overwhelmingly they lack merit. They could not make a mark themselves. So they said, I know, if I get elected to Congress, then my name will get recorded in the annals of history. That's how they want to make their mark, instead of being great. A lot of them made money and said, okay, now I can get attention and notoriety and be famous. And then there are a lot of people that rank and file members of Congress you've never heard of. You don't even know their name, and they do nothing. Literally, I don't even know what they're doing there in the first place. And you have a tiny handful of members of Congress I think there's probably like Ro Khanna, I like, he's a Democrat. I don't agree with him, but I like him. And then you've got maybe like, 10 or 12 Republicans. And the rest of Congress is a bunch of garbled trash.
It's a dysfunctional cafeteria of fools.
They want to still get invited to the cocktail parties and go to the functions at Capitol Grill. And, you don't get that if, MSNBC's speaking about you saying you're an election denier.
You work for 2 years, you get the security credentials, you leave, you get hired as a lobbyist for $400,000 a year, and then you go back and work on the Hill, eating fancy steak dinners for the rest of your days, saying, look, my company wants to drill, baby, drill, so we're going to come in and we're going to talk to the member of Congress and tell them what we want them to do, and I'm going to be a lobbyist for the rest of my days.
Gross.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.